Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vera Peneda from the European Journalism Center, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to our third and last day of News Impact Summit on Data, which is also our last News Impact Summit of 2020. These events are coming to an end, but we're very happy to say that these summits have exceeded our expectations. Our speakers, our community, and audience have reacted extremely positively to moving online with us to join NIS Audience and NIS Audio in October, and for the past 2 days at NIS Data. So all the work invested really has been worthwhile, and more than that, it has been a fantastic ride. We will be closing NIS Data today and this year's summits on a high note. We will listen from a Pulitzer Prize winner on how tools can be journalism and how this innovation is essential to regain the trust of our audiences. We will also learn how to create a brilliant data visualization story that ends up being the most seen and translated story on COVID-19, how to use numbers to place such a sensitive and urgent topic as femicide in the public agenda, and how data can also reveal unexpected good news and point towards solutions to improve our life and the world in general. Finally, at the online labs in German, French, and English today, we will leave you to discover the newest data tool from Google. And I am talking about Pinpoint, which will be extremely useful to help you with your investigations and in-depth reporting. So joining me today is Adam Thomas, EJC's director, and our graphic recorder, Sally Prink, who most of you know already from the past couple of days. Hello, Sally. Welcome to the last day of NIS Data.
Hi, Vera and Adam. How are you doing? I'm very conscious of always being a big white canvas when you speak to me, but I promise to fill it up as the time passes.
Great.
Looking forward to it.
We're looking forward to your drawings. We also have Angela, who many of you know by now. She will be interacting with you as usual in the live chat. And good afternoon to you, Adam. A little bit nostalgic over this last summit of the year too.
Good afternoon, Vera. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. It is great to be joining the News Impact Summit today. I can't believe that this is the last day of the last summit of the year. We've had to rework over 70% of our programs at the EJC this year, and converting a program like the News Impact Summit, which is predominantly online and predominantly in person, into an online extravaganza is not easy. But Vera, you and the team have done an amazing job, and it's just been fantastic to watch us connect, I think, with the community in a totally different way. So I'm really, really excited to see what's going to happen today. I'm a little bit emotional. I'm a lot happy. I'm very tired, and I'm sure you are too. So before we start our sessions, I'd like to invite everyone to help energize us and the live chat with some comments. So please let us know, firstly, how you are feeling, and secondly, where you are joining us from today. And here's a question for you to help us fill in our chat with lots of data shout outs. Can you share one of your favorite data journalism works in 2020 into the live chat? Mine is probably the Washington Post COVID-19 post that visualized what your neighborhood might look like if it was the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic in the United States. It's a pretty powerful data visualization piece. For me, it really brought home some very abstract numbers in a very real life way and used amazing data and mapping to bring this all to life. How about you, Vera?
Well, I agree. The Washington Post did some amazing data work this year. I thought of the piece on how the coronavirus exposed health disparities in communities of color. I think that one was also really great. And we will be sharing all these links with you in the live chat. Angela is on it as usual. I think 538 and the New York Times have also produced some of the best data visualizations around the US elections, for example. But I'd invite our audience as well to keep a close eye on the work of the Marshall Project, the visual essays of the pudding, which you actually recommended to me, Adam. And if you'd like to see a project from a country where the access to data is, let's say, forbidden and outside the legal scope, do check out Proyecto Inventario. It's from Cuba. It's really amazing. I was lucky to have the opportunity to select some of my favorites and invite the journalists to join us at the News Impact Summit. And today we will look at one of these favorite stories of mine, I believe, a room, a bar, and a classroom, how the coronavirus is spread through the air. This is by El Pais, which was one of the best pieces I saw this year, explaining how aerosols spread COVID-19 in various indoor settings, and measures on how to prevent this with excellent graphics. So yeah, don't forget to watch the NIS data recorded sessions. They will live on YouTube, and you can catch up on those. There's a lot of amazing data work over there.
Super.
Yeah. No worries at all. No worries at all.
I was just going to read out some of the chat. I mean, there's some love, of course, in the chat for El Pais as well, and some good shout outs there. And our colleagues from the EJC are dropping some other links in so you can follow some of the things from there. And we've seen colleagues joining us, of course, from all around Europe and beyond as well, which is really, really, really great. So before we introduce you to the first speaker, I'd like to remind everyone that it's been great to see the interaction between you all and the speakers, of course, over the past 3 days. So your comments and questions in the live chat are really important to us. So keep them coming. We will make sure that we share them with the speakers throughout the rest of these sessions. We are also, of course, taking the conversation about our event today to Twitter and to LinkedIn, as per usual, using the hashtag NISData.
Perfect. And before we jump into the program, we would like to thank our sponsor and partner, Google News Initiative, for making the summits possible. And also to all the other organizations who joined our events and helped spread the word about the summits online. Thank you so much for all the support and the enthusiasm. And finally, a huge thanks to everyone who is joining us today to follow the sessions and who have done this for the past few days and the past events as well. So let me take a look over here in the chat. We have participants we have Daphne saying hello from Greece. Now it's a mixture of comments about data visualization and great work, and people saying hello. Hello from Paris as well, joining from Dusseldorf. There's Stella. And it's been fantastic to see in the past few days, really, how people are joining from everywhere around the world.
We're really proud of the good energy and good conduct here at the News Impact Summits, and that doesn't change just because we're online. So I want to invite you all to take a look at the no harassment policy, which is now being posted into the chat. Please be respectful with your comments and your behavior to your fellow journalism colleagues.
Very good. This is an important reminder. Thanks, Adam. And also, I guess we are ready to start. We have scheduled for today a conversation with Julia Angwin, investigative journalist, founder and editor-in-chief of The Markup, who will be sharing more on data tools like Simple Search and Blacklight and how they're helping on the fight against mis and disinformation. After that, we will be joined by Kiko Yaneras and Mariano Zafra from El Pais, who will walk us through how the newsroom changed to deal with the unexpected amount of data around COVID in Spain, and also with the situation in the country, and to be producing works like the one we mentioned before. And you can find the link actually in the chat as well. From Spain, we will travel to Brazil to learn how a team of 30 reporters of a regional newspaper in the northeastern state of Pernambuco came together to collect data and follow police investigations to report and place the systemic issue of violence against women under public discussion. And finally, we will learn to identify positive deviance on data to produce more solutions-oriented journalism and help us counter bad news fatigue. I'd say this is a very positive way to end our plenary sessions at NIS Data. So shall we start, Adam?
Let's get into it, Vera. We are ready to start. I am delighted to be welcoming Julia Angwin to News Impact Summit. She is the founder and editor-in-chief of The Markup. The Markup produces meaningful data-centered journalism about technology and, crucially, the people affected by it. Julia has been at the forefront of this type of reporting for many years now. Julia, it is a total pleasure to have you join us at the News Impact Summit. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Well, firstly, it is 8 a.m., I think, on Thanksgiving morning for you.
Yeah.
So you get a huge amount of karma points today for your commitment to journalism and our journalists here who are attending. So thank you so much. Secondly, we only have 20 minutes and I have a ton of questions and I know the audience do. So I'm going to get right to it and try and stay laser focused throughout this chat. To kick off, we have a lot of Europeans, of course, in our audience today who might not be super aware of the work of The Markup. So maybe we could start, if you could just give a quick bit of background to yourself, but also The Markup and how it started.
Sure, I'd love to. And good morning. It's a delight to be here, even though I am going to have to start baking right afterwards. I am a longtime tech journalist. I grew up in Silicon Valley and I started coding in 5th grade. And I always thought I would actually go into technology as an industry, but I ended up covering it as a journalist. And I covered technology for years at the Wall Street Journal. And one thing I realized was that I could enhance my own investigative powers by using technology. So I hired a technologist to help me with my investigations, to collect data, to analyze data. I then moved to ProPublica and did the same. But ultimately, I just felt I wanted a newsroom that had this collaboration between programmers and journalists at its core. And that is what led to the founding of The Markup. We just launched in February of this year. So I think we were publishing for about a week before we all had to go home for the pandemic, and we haven't been back to our offices since. But The Markup is a really unique newsroom. It's nonprofit. We write about the impact of technology on society, and we use technology for our investigations. Our newsroom is half programmers, 5 journalists. And so we're a very small outfit, but we feel like the technology allows us to really superpower our investigations because we can collect data at scale and do analysis that other newsrooms don't have the resources to do.
Thank you, Julia. My work at Storyful was surrounded by data a lot of the time, and I spent many hours, days, and weeks really diving deep into data streams and collecting data. But one of the most interesting emergences of data in the public sphere, let's say, is the use of data collection as part of the audience engagement process right now. So in other words, like helping the audience to gather data either for newsrooms or for their own purposes. And of course, you released Blacklight earlier this year. And really, when I saw that tool come online, I was so excited. It really just seemed to be perfectly executed and was such a smart yet simple way of helping audiences understand how data affects their lives. Can you tell us a bit more about the origins of the project and where you've got to today?
Yeah, absolutely. So Blacklight, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's at markup.org/blacklight, is just a tool. You can enter a URL into it, and we actually at that moment go visit that website for you and run a bunch of tests in real time to see what kind of privacy invading techniques is this new website using. And so it's probably the only real-time forensic privacy tool that's available to like a regular person. And the reason we developed it was because we actually wanted to build it for our own investigative reporting purposes. So we started building it as a tool to try to figure out how to write about privacy. And as we built it, we realized this is just so cool we should offer it to the public, which of course meant that it doubled the amount of time it took to build it, because building something sort of creaky for your own newsroom that's duct taped together is very different than building a product for consumers to use. But I feel like it has been so useful because there's so many ways to tell the story of privacy. And we have used Blacklight. We use Blacklight to tell a story. We investigated how all these websites for very sensitive topics like domestic violence and child sex trafficking unwittingly had been using a lot of privacy invading techniques on their websites. And we ran that story with the launch of the tool. And that's one way that people can get into a story, is they can read it, right? That's like the classic journalism entry point. Another way is to do really pretty data visualizations, which is something we didn't necessarily do with this story, but is a common journalistic technique. But the tool actually is another way to enter the story, because you can just look up your kid's school and see, well, how are they tracking at that school, and do I agree with it? And suddenly it's so much more relevant to you as a reader, and it actually tells you the same story, because the way we describe the tracking techniques, there's little links out where you can learn more, and so it actually tells you the same story, but in a way that's super relevant to the reader.
And you said on Twitter recently that sometimes tools are journalism, and I thought that just encapsulated it perfectly. And I love the fact that you were scratching your own itch in terms of your own newsroom and building a tool for yourself, and then decided, wait a minute, this has kind of wider use. And you also highlighted there that this isn't just a tool and technology, but what I really love about what you're doing at the Markup is how much you're combining different types of journalism. So you have the tool, you also do investigative pieces, you do amazing solutions pieces, but then you're also doing service journalism to tell people how to sort of help protect themselves online and so on and so forth. How do you editorially plan these pieces? Do you really think about every aspect of that when you set off and you make the series, or do you sort of get the data set or the tool out online and then engage with the audience to see what they might need next?
That's a really good question. We're such a new newsroom that I would be lying if I said we had a real template for this. We're kind of making it up as we go along. That said, for us, the thing that we focus on first is impact. How much does this affect people? So we have an investigative checklist that we fill out before we embark on one of these projects, because these projects are expensive and in terms of time and money, right? So, Blacklight was one programmer working for 18 months, and other parts of the newsroom as well, and additional contract programmers. So it's an expensive operation. And so we want to be thoughtful about which ones we pursue. So we make our decision based on how important is this issue to the world, and how many people are affected by it, and how deeply are they affected, right? And so Blacklight met all that criteria, because every single person who uses the internet is affected by the sort of surveillance economy that has just bloomed into monetizing your data everywhere that you turn. And so for that reason, it made sense to build that tool. We also built this tool, Simple Search, which is really cool. And that was a totally different thing. That sort of arose from our investigation. It wasn't the start of the investigation. We did an investigation to quantify something that probably everyone has noticed, which is when you do a Google search, the top results often are Google's own properties or other searches on Google. And so we wanted to see how much room was that taking up. And we measured it. We ran 15,000 searches, and we found that it was about 41% of the page. And so we thought, well, what does it look like after we published the investigation? We thought, what could we do to have readers have that own experience themselves, right? So we actually built a tool that strips all of that out of your search and just shows you what the links would have been if you hadn't seen all that content at the top, called Simple Search. And that tool was interesting because it was the opposite of Blacklight. It was really like, after we finished the investigation, we thought, let's do a thing that helps people bring them closer to this question and experience it for themselves.
That's one of the things I think that I love about the work, is how complementary those two tools are. And I think you answered my question in terms of it felt like there was a slightly different design process going on behind there. One other thing that I love is about your articles and generally the site in general is just the design layout and so on and so forth. You're very prepared to put explainers in to help the audience. From where do you get your sort of design inspiration and creativity? Do you have a team of designers in-house? Is this something that you work with external people on?
So we have one designer, Sam Morris, who's brilliant. He was at the Guardian for many years, and so everything you see is him. So just everyone give him a big shout out. And we are hoping to add more, but we're a pretty small group right now. We have one big advantage on our website, which is we have two big advantages. One is we don't use any trackers. So we don't have any add-in software that slows the page loading or that the designer has to work around. So there's literally no cookies set on our website if you come visit. So it makes it really fast. And it's also easy for a designer because they don't have to worry about all of those externalities. The other thing about our website is we're not a high volume, massive, pump out millions of stories web place. We publish a couple times a week, and we want those stories to be really meaningful and impactful. So we have time to design them. And I think that makes a huge difference. We're kind of a bespoke operation.
So it sounds like there is a lot of UX thought in there. There's a lot of product thinking, and I guess there's even service design in there somewhere as well. And that's often the cornerstones of work that you see like this. And I think one of the challenges for many newsrooms is they might not possess those skills or those resources in-house or inside their team. You've explained a bit about what your team looks like, and it sounds like you have some sort of real data and design ninjas in there. But do you think any newsroom can start to approach this type of work and start thinking about tools as journalism, or do you think it can only be done by newsrooms who have developers and designers in-house?
Well, I have to say, like, the reason I founded the market was I felt that even though I'd been at some of the very best newsrooms in the world, that it needed to be, this type of thing needs to be done with a clean playing field. And I would say that there are a lot of reasons for that, but probably one of the most primary reasons for it is that there's a culture issue around merging the culture of programming and design and development with the culture of journalism. And so by building that from the start where it's all unified, so our programmers work in partnership with a journalist, and so they're teams and very collaborative, is something that is just really unique. Most places that I've worked, the data team is a service desk, it's a small group, and it's overstrapped because everyone in the newsroom is in line trying to get their help. And so it starts to feel a little bit like the post office where you're waiting in line to get your ticket. And so I wanted the opposite of that. We actually we do have more programmers on staff than we do journalists. And so we are over-resourced in that way. And so that makes it feel a little bit less like a scarcity issue where there's not this constant like, oh my God, can I get a programmer for this issue, right? And so people can be more creative in that space because we can brainstorm together and there's a possibility we could actually pull it off.
So let's flip the camera a bit and maybe point our focus on the communities that your work serves. I really feel like the next frontier of this work is enabling communities and individuals to gather and understand data themselves, to answer questions that they themselves might that they might have. Is this also how you see it? And we've had a really, I think, exciting few years in Europe, especially with people like Corrective and the Bureau of Investigative Journalism doing really powerful work of putting skills and tools in the hand of communities who are then also defining their own questions and doing their own investigations with help from newsrooms at a local and a national level. Is this sort of how you would see the next stage of this, is to really put as many of these tools in the hands of the public as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I would really love for Blacklight to be used by other newsrooms, right? It is a great reporting tool. And there have been a few stories, not maybe as many as I would like. I think a lot of newsrooms are really busy. There's a lot of news going on these days. But I think that we are a nonprofit and our donors see us as a public service. And so we want to serve not just the public, but other journalists. And so we hope that our tools will be used and also by the community, right? People can themselves use these tools and make their own decisions about like, oh, I'm going to write to my kids' school and ask them, why are they using this weird invasive technique? And it empowers them in a way. I think of it a little bit like there's so much fun about being an investigative journalist. It's like, being a detective, right? You chase down all these clues and there's an aha moment. And I want to share that joy and excitement with our readers. And so these tools give them that opportunity to have that experience of discovery, that they are discovering the fact themselves. And like with Blacklight and with Simple Search, these facts didn't exist until they discovered them. Like, we don't have a database somewhere of every website and what it's doing. The moment that you use that tool, Blacklight, on a website is when that data is created. So it really is yours. You know, you created it, you can use it. We have a way where you can download it and keep it for yourself. And you can also send us a tip like, hey, could you investigate this? And so I want to share that excitement, because I think I liked what Vera said earlier about, you know, there is a lot of bad news fatigue out there. And I think it's important to try to engage with readers in a way that gives them a sense of agency instead of a sense of hopelessness. And a lot of times just reading investigative articles can feel very hopeless. And so I think tools is a really good way to give people the same information and honestly share that same outrage that we are trying to generate, which is like, this is a thing that is, you should think about, that maybe we don't want the world to be like this, but also give them a sense that they can do something about it.
There's an incredible media literacy play there as well, of course, in which you are teaching people how to do journalism, the value of journalism, how difficult that can be, but also the value of open data and all of those things. And so I really love it. I think there's a whole dimension there that we could dedicate another conference to. I want to give everyone in the chat a chance to ask their questions. I see a couple coming in already, but I have one more question for you, which is, who else in the US do you see doing this type of work that you think we should all be taking a look at? Who's got you excited at the minute in the world of data and news product?
Well, you know, the thing is that what we're doing at the Markup isn't actually that new. There's so many great journalists, right? The Washington Post data team, the BuzzFeed data team, honestly, people like Jen LaFleur who have led data journalism in the US for years. And so I do want to be respectful of the fact that there are so many giants whose shoulders we're standing on, and we are just what we are doing is just building a newsroom around that, as opposed to having one person, you know, solo in each newsroom around the country trying to do their own heroic work, you know?
Well, you're very humble, Julia. I think, you know, what you say is definitely true, but the execution of this is also very, very hard. Like, ideas are easy, and I think you and the team have executed this incredibly well. So I'm excited to see what happens next for you and the team. Angela, do we have some questions in the chat that we could pose to Julia?
Yes, we have a few. Hi, Julia. How are you?
Hi, great.
We have a question here from Amandre. Amandre asks, what are the challenges of running a team with such a big mix of abilities? And she adds, more programmers than journalists. That's very interesting.
You know, it's so interesting because everybody asked me when I was starting this, how are you going to get programmers? They're so expensive, right? And the truth is, we do have to pay a premium, but we also have found that it's actually, there are way more programmers interested in this type of work. The challenge is actually on the other side, finding journalists who are technologically literate and good at interacting with the developers, because I'm sure you guys are all familiar with this. There's a certain type of journalists who went into the business because they hated math and wanted to write and are pretty numbers phobic, and there's also, and some of those people, a lot of those people are super talented, but it's really hard if you have somebody who treats technology like magic, right? So you probably all experienced this. There's somebody who will come up to the developer and say, I want you to do this, create this data set, right? And they think it's magic because they don't understand it. And so we have to work hard to make sure that we don't find people like that, because that's what makes the developers angry. And so it's actually about finding journalists who understand how to work with programmers, how to be respectful of their abilities and understand that there are some things they can do and some things they can't do, and that it's honestly going to be a collaboration to figure out what we can and can't do in each case.
One of the things we talk about a lot here, Julia, sorry to talk over the top of you, Angela. One of the things we talk about a lot here is obviously computational thinking as well, the ability to formulate a problem so it can also be solved by a computer. And it's something in newsrooms that I think is really important, is when you start to think about some of the journalistic problems and questions communities have in that sort of frame. I think it starts to you yield different results, and you definitely start looking at the way and the process of journalism very differently.
So one thing we do is actually our journalists need to write up sort of a methodology. They have to come up with a hypothesis, and work with a programmer to say, is this a hypothesis we can test? How would we test it? What are the data we would need to collect? It's a little form they have to fill out. And it sort of encourages what I hadn't heard that term before, computational thinking, but I love it. And I'm going to steal it. So I'll credit you. But it is exactly to develop that sort of rigor about how can we make sure that this is a problem we can do and that we're not just tilting at windmills.
Awesome. Well, we are out of time, I'm afraid, Julia. This was
Oh.
such a short and brief chat, and I could talk to you for hours. I hope COVID-19 will allow us to do that in person, either at one of these events or another one soon. Please go and enjoy your turkey, your baking, and the rest of your day. We are sending our best to you and your family, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Okay, Vera, it is over to you.
Yes, we're back. Thanks so much, Julia. Happy Thanksgiving. And thank you as well, Adam, for this insightful conversation about building data products like Blacklight and Simple Search, the Citizen Browser project. You can find all of them in the Markups website. These are super interesting to understand how data can help counter disinformation and produce public interest journalism. So before we move on, we'd like to share with you Sally's illustration. I believe it's taking shape. There we go.
Oh, wow.
Yes, indeed, with some of the highlights of the conversation with Julia. And well, this was recorded, and will be on YouTube as well. So for those who missed the beginning of the event today, they will be able to recover the main ideas and points. And up next, we have Kiko Yaneras and Mariano Zafra from the Spanish media outlet El Pais. So Spain was one of the first and hardest hit countries by COVID-19 in the beginning of the year. And at the same time, newsrooms nationwide were also finding new ways to cope with huge amounts of data, remote work, restrictions to reporting, etc. So Kiko and Mariano will tell us how El Pais reacted to these new circumstances and how they came to the point of producing successful data visualizations and stories like A Room, a Bar, and a Classroom, which was published last month and became quite, I guess we can say, an internet sensation. Hola, Kiko and Mariano, bienvenidos.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
So I think I will start right now. I have to share my screen, right? So let me try that, okay? Share screen. Application.
Yes, I think it's in the bottom of the screen.
Yeah. Okay, I think I have some permissions. Okay, give me just one moment.
Yeah. We can help from here if it's necessary.
I think it's a permissions issue, but security, I think it can be a minute.
And it's something we need to get Julia to investigate with the markup. It's a privacy and security issue.
Do you think it'll take a bit longer, Kiko?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I'll invite everyone to Google the story that at some point Kiko and Mariano will be referring to. Perhaps, Angela, can you please share the link? We had it ready, so we're going to share it in the live chat while we wait for the slides to appear. And Kiko as well. We seem to have lost him for a little bit there. No big deal. We're going to help from our end as well. Find the slides here. Sorry about this. Yes, I believe we
can do them from here.
Yeah, I believe we have the slides ready here. So Kiko and Mariano, if that's okay with you, we'll just show them. And then you just need to tell us whenever it's necessary to change to the next slide.
Okay.
From here.
There we go.
If
Perfect.
it's simple, because I can just confirm me that you are looking at my screen right now. Yeah, I think so. Just to check. So you're looking at my screen right now, and now I can present. So are you with me at the first slide, right?
Yes. All good.
All good, perfect. So thanks all for the invitation. I'm really glad of being here. I'm going to talk about our work at El Pais during the coronavirus crisis. I will talk first about the data and analytical part of it, and then Mariano will talk about the visuals. So the first thing to take into account is that, as you probably know, Spain was hit really soon and really hard. So we have started working with the coronavirus data quite soon. We published our first story, the data story, on March 3rd. It was basically a story when we were saying the data says that COVID is not the flu. That, as you probably remember, this was a topic in February, so we were talking about that. And then our second piece was on March 8th, and it was our first dashboard. It was a country-level tracker, because we were very interested in following how cases were increasing, were being multiplied country by country. So I think this dashboard, published on March 8th, was one of the first in a big outlet. And the reason was that yeah, we were hit very soon. And one of the interesting things is that we have no reference there. So it was, of course, our first pandemic, but we haven't a lot of other media in other countries to take a look at their work. So we had to improvise. And this is one of the charts that we used in that first story. And I think it's still quite good. It's still relatively good, because it's a line chart that I think is the best chart you can use to follow the epidemic. We were showing many countries, and now that seems obvious because we know that we are in a pandemic, but the pandemic was not official in March 8th. So we were in somehow anticipating that cases were going to appear in several countries. And probably the most important thing, we use a logarithmic scale. So this was very useful at the beginning of the epidemic, because the most important message we have in March is that an epidemic is an exponential phenomenon. So the cases were not that scary at first. We have 2 cases in Spain, maybe 10, 20, 50, 100, but this was not that scary. But the thing is that should be scary, because that was an exponential growth. Cases were being multiplied, and that will lead us to an explosion of cases as we saw. And the most important phrase in our piece was that here is Europa está en fase de crecimiento exponencial. We were saying Europe is in exponential growth. So after that, we have written a lot for these 8 months, and with quite success. Right now, 9 of the top most viewed articles published at El Pais this year were data stories, and we are a small team of 3 people, so this was quite a good result. The work I'm going to present has been mainly done by Daniel Grasso and Borja Andrino and myself. So some lessons I have learned during this month of intense work. I will start working about talking about the charts. As the most important chart to cover the pandemic, I think, is the line chart, this kind of line chart, because they provide two very important pieces of information. The first one is they said how many cases, how many admissions, how many deaths are in a particular region. This is important, but the most important thing to put in a chart is the trend. The most important piece of information is to know if cases are spreading or not. And the line chart is a very, very compact way of showing those things. The situation is good, bad, or it's probably good, bad, or not that bad, but how is the trend? And this is the most important chart to show. We also use small multiples because an epidemic is a local geographic phenomena. So you have to show how is the situation in a particular region, in a particular country. So small multiples were very useful to do that. And then we use a different chart to answer probably the most important question regarding the crisis, which is how can we measure the severity of the crisis, how bad things had been. And to show that, we are using this kind of charts with a total excess of deaths. It's how many deaths are occurring that are unexpected, that are abnormal in this year. And in this case, I think it's very important to use the total, the accumulation of deaths, because the peaks are somehow misleading. We have suffered that in Spain in this second wave, because if you look at the small chart that you have at the bottom, where España appears, you can see that the peak in March was huge, and the situation now doesn't seem that bad. The peaks are not comparable. So people tend to think that, okay, the second wave is not that bad. But the thing is that we have no total lockdown now, so we have been in a second wave for several months, and deaths are accumulating day by day. And the chart at the top is trying to show that. You can, if you look at the chart, the big one, you can see that in Spain we had 48,000 deaths during the first wave, but in the second wave we are now around 25,000, probably 30,000. So sadly, the severity of the first and second wave are perfectly comparable right now. And I think that this chart it's important to show that. Finally, the last thing about charts that I want to mention is that tables have been very useful, because tables are a way of putting many variables and many regions in a compact way. And since the coronavirus is a complex phenomenon, it's a good idea to put several variables there. And I like them better than maps for coronavirus in general. We can discuss this in the questions. I like maps a lot, but I think that in this case they were not that useful. And yeah, 3 more lessons, a bit more abstract ones, besides the charts. I think the first one is, you were talking about that coding is for journalists. We have been talking a lot about having people able to code in a newsroom in the last years, but I would say that it's even more important to have journalists that are able to code. I think one of the characteristics of our small team, we are 3 people, is that 2 of us were coders before than writers. And I think that makes us quite fast. We were maybe discussing in a meeting like this, we were discussing an hypothesis, an idea, we have some topic that we wanted to explore, and we could immediately move to data exploration. We open an R terminal and we start looking at the data in real time. And I think that this process was really efficient. And I think it's one of the strengths of our work during these months. The second idea I want to highlight is that the most important objective that that we had in mind was to show the data to the readers. Why? Because we discovered very early that readers were eager to see the data by themselves. They wanted to know how was the situation in their country, in the region. They wanted to compare with other regions, but they clearly wanted to see that by themselves. Probably because they wanted to draw their own conclusions. So we have to choose the relevant variables, but it was very important to show the data very clearly and very fast. This was our first objective. The second one, which is my favorite topic, so I will be brief about it, is that data alone is not sufficient. We have to join, to combine the data with the analytical part of the problem. And I think that I understand our work more as analytical journalism. I think it's more about data, more about analysis than data. And that implies several things. It means that you have to take a scientific stance. I think that we have to put in our pieces this kind of approach. We have to write about evidences, about caveats, about hypotheses, and put that in the piece. I think that's important, and that means also that we have to embrace uncertainty. So we are writing about very complex topics, and of course we don't have the answers. Maybe we are writing this week or the following weeks about if we have to cancel Christmas or not. Who knows if we have to cancel Christmas or not? We don't have the answer to that question. So I think we don't need the answer. We need to put the story, and readers are okay with uncertainty. They know that you are just a guy trying to explain a thing, but that you don't have the answers to the difficult questions. So I think that we have to write about difficult, complex topics, but of course embrace the uncertainty that there is around. And then, of course, it's important to let readers draw their own conclusions. I like to put our judgments in a piece. I think we have to put our judgment as a way of transparency. This is how I see things because of this or that. But of course, you can disagree. And I think that one last thing is that it's important when we are writing about complex topics to write in simple terms. Why? Because it seems obvious, but I think that we forgot that sometimes. It's easier to explain complex things when you write in simple and with clarity. So this is my let's say idea here. And finally, just to end my part of the presentation, I have an optimistic message. Maybe it's too optimistic, but I think that this is not a COVID thing. I think that the success that we have had with data and complexity during the last month is not a COVID thing. It's a signal of something that is changing in journalism. I think we are covering more complex stuff, big topics which are complicated, that we try to present in an approachable way, because there is a market for it. I think that there are readers that want to read about these complex topics that they are interested in. They know that you don't have the answers. They want your best try, and if there is a market for it, and I think that it is, we should write more of these stories. And finally, just to end, I think that Mariano, the example that Mariano will talk about now, is a perfect example of this, because it's a story about a very complex phenomena, the transmission of a virus that is about a science that we don't have 1 year ago. It's a complex story, but it's presented in a very useful and a very interesting storytelling. So I think it's a good example of success, and I will let him continue here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. I'm Mariano Zafra. I am the graphic editor, storytelling and graphics editor in El Pais. I work alongside Kiko Yaneras because our team is we have a graphic and visual specialist and also data specialist, and we work together in different stories. Sometimes data analysis stories and sometimes only visual stories explaining a lot of kind of stories. This story is the next, please, next slide, and another one, please. This is a story about how the coronavirus is spread through the air. Maybe now we are listening about this concept, no? The aerosols and the transmission through the air like a normal thing. But if we think 3 or 4 months ago, we didn't know about the aerosols, and now has become probably the most important thing about the transmission. And I'm gonna think about the keys of this, not only the story, but about the concept. This story, we are sure that this is the most visited article in El Pais history, with more than 20 million that we have counted, but also has been translated to 10, 12 languages, and we realized that this was important when we saw the people consulting this story, and we share the graphics, the images and the text with other media who made their own version of the graphic, and probably reaching 30, 40 million people. I don't know, it's like a virus itself, this story, explaining simple, complex, like Kiko has said, complex things in a simple way. And why? If you please, the next, okay. This is the question. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the question was about coughing and sneezing, no? The droplets that we send to other people, and we can infect in that way, only with droplet. And all the measures from the CDC and the World Health Organization has been in that way, no? Like try to avoid that droplets in the air with mask and I don't remember the word. Sorry, yes, indeed, glasses or how do you say? 1 second.
A mask.
No,
or any kind of mask or
screens. Maybe indeed, transparent screens, face sealed. Thank you. And now we know that this is not the main vehicle or main route of transmission. And why we did this infographic. I mean, I think this is the most important graphic probably I have made in my life. And it's important not because of the audience. It's because now I know that there are people, because people have told me here in Spain that they are open the windows and avoiding closed rooms and closed bars because they have read or see this infographic. And I mean, wow, I mean, people is taking action because they have seen this here in Spain, and also scientists talking about this graphic in Twitter, in people not through the web of El Pais, through WhatsApp, in their personal WhatsApps, their personal nets, they are sharing this infographic because look at this, how easy we can see how the coronavirus is transmitting. And this, I mean, is very important. If you please go to the, and this is the question, right? We talk with Jimenez, is a aerosol scientifics specialized in this, in the behavior of aerosols, and they told that more or less this is the question, not that we are emitting infectious doses called quanta when we are only breathing 10 times more. We emit 10 times more number of particles when we are talking and 50 times more when we are shooting. And this image, I think, is very clear, and you can see that how the room is full of this kind of particles, and that this is dangerous. And this is the question, no? If you go to the next. But I think this graphic, I have copied this image from the World Health Organization today, and another one from in the CDC, and they are also talking and preventing us about how the coughing and sneezing is the main vehicle of transmission, and you have to maintain the safe distance, the social distance, and also wearing mask, and also cleaning, and they are not already talking about the aerosol transmission at all. And I think, I mean, in the next, you can see how since the beginning of the pandemic, there are tons of outbreaks where one single infected person with COVID has infected dozens of people far from the person infected, like in this office in, I think it's in, I don't remember, but this is a real case when only one infected. There was an outbreak with more than 79 infected in the same room. I mean, it's not. I can't understand how if it's only one infected, how can he infect one people 100 meters from him? And since the beginning of the pandemic, we have been asking ourselves. I mean, it's not very clear how can we infect this kind of infections. It's not very clear how can we have only by sneezing. It's like, I mean, I remember when if I go through in the street and I see someone sneezing or coughing in front of me, and there are a lot of people infected that they don't remember where they got infected. It's like there are something strange in here that has to be explained. And in the next, we talk with Jose Luis Jimenez. This is probably the best specialist of aerosols in the world, working in the University of Colorado, where he leads a group of scientists, more than 100 scientists, talking about the importance of this kind of transmission. Indeed, we talk. He made a tool, a simulation of how the transmission of the aerosols is the vehicle, and I mean we talked to him, and we made the Javier Salas is a journalist of science in El Pais, the scientists and me, and we talked together to make this piece. I think this was the key of the graphic, no? The counting with the vision of the specialist, like Jose Luis Jimenez, the science journalist like Javier Salas, that he has been publishing and writing about the transmission since the beginning, and he understands, like, he has a whole a big picture of all the things that scientists and organizations have say about the pandemic, and a visual journalist like me that can, like, concrete visually these messages. And I think this is the key from this infographic, that is working together, visual journalist, science journalist, or journalist specialized in whatever kind of story, like politics or whatever, and the scientist, the people who know the most what we are talking about. I think the success of this story, we are gonna remember this story, and we are still analyzing this story, the success, and trying to imitate the success. And we know that the success is that, no, that to convey information clearly, important message that help people make the decisions. I think this is the most important thing about the presentation. Thank you. I think.
Hi, hola, Mariano, hola Kiko.
Hola.
How are you?
Hola.
We have a few questions from the audience, so I will start asking you. This one is from Tamo van Lochen. Tamo asks, what tools do you use to make visualizations?
Tools.
Yes.
The tools, mainly in this case, for this story, is most a visual story, no, right? And we need tools like to make the drawings. Is the most popular is Adobe Illustrator. Is where we make the sketches, where we try to imagine the story. Other tools like we did the animations is After Effects, and also another 3D Studio Max to make the 3D images. But this is only to make the drawings and the sketches. There are also another important part, that is having prepared the layouts. For example, this scrollytelling, when you change the images while you are scrolling with the finger in your mobile, we have already prepared that tool. It's called scrollytelling, and we can reuse constantly. Indeed, we have used that technique in other stories, but this is the key, no? Having prepared that tool, you can use that quickly. Indeed, I know coding, but I'm not so good coding. If you have this kind of tools, you can make stories quickly and with all the power of the technology, for example.
We have one question also from Lisa Dupuy. Lisa asks you, in covering COVID, I've noticed a continuing discussion in newsroom. Which data do we use for our analysis, like daily numbers, number of infections or death, and how do we explain about that to the audience?
First of all, that's one of the things to take into account. We continuously are discussing which is the most relevant variable at each moment. So I think that the most important variable is the number of cases, how many cases there is in a region, the new number of cases. We have 200 cases yesterday. Smooth it, because we know the data is noisy, so we have to maybe take into account 1 week to make a data point. And this is the most useful data every day. But the thing is, the number of cases detected depends not only in the evolution of the virus, but also in the detection protocol. How many tests are we employing and that. So we typically combine the number of cases with the number of admissions. How many people is arriving to the hospitals, because that is easier to measure. So these are the variables. And how to explain that to the audience? I think that you have to explain like I have done here. I think that we have to put this kind of details in the stories. It's not enough to say cases is the best variable to follow the virus. We need this because of that. I think this kinds of reason with the reader and provide and give the arguments or the judgments you are doing. It's important because it's the way of being trustful.
We have here one question from Carlo. Carlo asks, I live in Belgium and I saw your animated infographic in National Belgian television. Did you get paid for all the uses that were made of your brilliant work, or it went out of your control?
It went totally out of our control, totally out. I mean, maybe 10 different newspapers and webs asked for permission about publishing the story, and the director of Pais decided that, I mean, this story is important. It's more important than the business, the newspaper and everything. And I mean, it's something that have to be shared. And we share for free all the assets. Indeed, there are 5 or more newspapers that have made their own versions with different text or with the same graphics and different text, and everything for free. I mean, I think it's good, right? I mean, is the signal that we have made something important, and we have our little made our little contribution of in the pandemic. And for us is, I mean, for me, I'm very happy only with that. I don't know if this article is gonna be rewarded with some journalist awards, but I don't care. For me, I'm very happy only with this, no, to have made something useful.
It was for the common good. We have here the last question from Amandre, and Amandre asks you, is El Pais planning to enlarge its data team after this huge success, as it happened with the Washington Post, for instance?
Of course, I want to enlarge our team before and after the pandemic. So, of course, we would like to do it. I think that it's not a question only for El Pais. I think that the question is how many developers are going to be incorporated to the newsroom. I think we were talking about tools. We are working mostly with R stats. And of course, I would like to have more people around. And the first person I have to make my arguments to whom is to Mariano, which is the boss.
The boss. I mean, we are asking for analytics, and we already know that our stories, not only data stories, all kind of visual stories in El Pais. 50 stories, the most visited stories in El Pais, more than 20 are the most visited and have made millions of and indeed, the Washington Post, they realized that, and they also published another very important, very, very popular story about, in the beginning, not about the transmission and the outbreaks, and how the coronavirus, how is the R factor, right? I can't remember, but because of
the dynamics of the spreading, and how you need a lockdown to stop the spreading of the virus, and it was super useful piece.
Yes, and only because of that story, they have hired 14 people, I think, And we are trying to say our directors that is the way that is worthy to invest in more visual people. Fortunately, we are crossing a very economic hard times, and in this year we can hire, but we are trying to incorporate new hirings to the next year. We hope that we could hire more.
Thank you.
I just one small comment. It's very, very small. I think that it's one of the difficulties is that our pieces are still quite expensive, because we need several people to work on it, and we spend quite some time. So one of the challenges I face is how I can invest in a story that I can share not only tomorrow in the newspaper that I'm going to publish tomorrow, but something that deserves to be read in a week. And that is the challenge for us. I think that's the key question to ask for more people.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation, Kiko and Mariano. Thank you for sharing this amazing work here with us today. Have a great day.
Have a good day. Thank you very much.
You. It was a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
Muchas gracias, Kiko and Mariano, for your time with us and for sharing more about this great story. We move on now to our next moment. Yesterday, the United Nations, many organizations and the media around the world marked International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women in 2020 and kickstarted a 16-day campaign that happens every year to raise awareness for this systemic issue. We know that the pandemic has made violence against women worse, whether it is because more women spend more time at home or working online, for example. In 2020, the campaign is amplifying the call for global action to bridge funding gaps, ensure essential services for survivors of violence during the COVID-19 crisis, focus on prevention, and lastly, the collection of data that can improve life-saving services for women and girls. And this is where our next session fits in perfectly. We are connecting to the other side of the world to welcome Caroline, Ciara, and Juliana, who are joining us from Brazil, more precisely from the state of Pernambuco, where they work at the regional newspaper Jornal do Comércio. They've been invited to share with us about a special report they put together. It is called Uma por Uma, One by One. And this was done by a multidisciplinary team of 30 journalists, mostly women, who worked together on collecting data and following police investigations to produce a multimedia special on femicide in their home state. This ended up creating a public database and pointing to solutions for the problem. Bem-vindas, Caroline, Juliana, and Ciara. I'm very happy to have you with us today.
Good afternoon. I am Juliana de Mello, editor of the news site Yaneras, one of the 31 reporters females that works in the One by One project.
Hello, I am Ciara Carvalho. I'm executive editor for the newspapers, Jornal do Comércio, and also one of the 31 family reports that works by One project.
Hello everyone, I am Carolina Albuquerque, also one of the 31 journalists that worked in this project, in the One by One project, and I'll be presenting our project to you today. We worked this project at the Sistema Jornal do Comércio de Comunicação, a media group located in Pernambuco, state of Northeast Brazil. We have TV, radio, newspaper, and website in our media group. And this is the first image of our project. And before starting, I'll show you a little teaser of our project. Let me play it here.
Dani, uma por uma. Vamos voltar. Aniela, Dani, Lúcia, Renata, Carmen, Roberta, Janaína. Por que as mataram? E ele estava dizendo que nem Jesus Cristo que mataram e mataram. Estava bebendo, fumando, curtindo o final de ano dele e ela morta. Eu não vou parar de lutar. Uma por uma, para que não se esqueça. Uma por uma, para que se cura. Uma por uma, para que se denuncie. Uma por uma, para que não nos cabe. Uma por uma, para que pare. Uma por uma, para que pare.
So this is our teaser. The project is about, let me get to the next slide. Okay, the project is about femicide, which is a huge problem here in Brazil. The country is the 5th in the world with the highest rates of murder of women, according to the UN Human Rights Office. El Salvador, Colombia, Guatemala, and Russia are the only countries with higher rates than us here. So before we will show you some numbers so you can understand the monstrosity of the crime and the fear of the victims. 12 women are killed daily in Brazil. It's about a murder every 2 hours. It means 4.5 homicides of women per 100,000 Brazilian women. And in our state, Pernambuco, the problem is much bigger. It's much worse because it's 5.8 women cases, homicides, in each 100,000 Brazilian women. This is the cover of our site, our website of the project. And as journalists, we deal with this hard reality daily. So with the numbers of 2018, with 241 women killed in the state, 85 were victims of femicide. To handle all this amount of cases, we recruited some female journalists at the media group that already worked with this kind of news daily. It's like this, how shallow the story of these women were told. Their last moment alive, when they died, were the only things that we knew about them. Their life, what happened, all this information were missed on the way to that. So it felt really unfair to these victims. It was a general feeling. So with the project, we united to debate it and to really look into the problem very, very closely. So you can see the cover here, and it's like it shows that the entire body of the woman is the amount of cases, and the line shows the victims of the femicide. And here's some of our illustration. So right after the crime happened, we searched what was in the media, even on our own coverage of the facts. We listed the crime and delivered the cases between the journalists working in the project. So it wouldn't be only the death. We would go along with the police investigation, the public ministry reports, the trials, everything would go into this database. And back there in 2018, we decided to go along with the cases until the perp, until he was convicted of the crime. And to this day, we still fight for a project. And by the end of 2020, in December, we'll have another update with how the cases are now. And let me show you some of the identity of the website.
Parece que o dispositivo está desconectado. Para conectá-lo, deslize para baixo a parte superior da tela. Em seguida, acesse configurações.
Okay, so here is the map of the femicide in Pernambuco, in our state. And that's how it's one way that we found to put all this huge amount of data together. It may not be a very big amount of cases when we talk about data journalism with thousands of lines, but in our project, each line meant a life. Each line tells the story of one woman. So we made a form with more than 80 questions about the cases, not only the victim, but the crime, age, the places, the perp. And this map is one way to browse it. So you can click in each thing, and each dot, it means one victim. The red ones are femicide victims, and the white ones are other kinds of murder. So with this kind of data, with this kind of information, we can get rid of the crime of passion thing. So each line will tell you the story, leaving this very what's the word for sexist. It's a very sexist way of telling it, a crime of passion. It's not crime of passion. It's like the criminal owns the victim. So after the map, let me get to the next one. If you click one of the dots, you have the little profile of the victim, like this one, and you can click again to see her file, her story. Okay. And if you really pay attention to this map, you can see how the femicide is huge in our state. Because if the red dots are supposed to mean the femicide victims, you can see that's more than a third of the crimes, the victims. Okay. And let me show you here another way we had this data given to our readers. Each picture of these are one of the women. So some we really didn't have her face, her picture, so we used the art to show it. And you can browse it monthly. By the end of each month, we updated the cases. We also had an advanced search. I don't know if you can see it here where the mouse is. And there you can sort your search by the name, the age, the race, schooling, location, and also the type of crime, when it happened, in which city it happened, in which neighborhood it happened, and how she was related to the killer. It's you can sort it, and if you sort it, if you sort by race and you click find victims, it's the red, this one, the red button. You have the total of victims of that little point you chose. So the user can see the data how he or she wants to understand it. It's a way of making sure they would know every situation of this project. And the data is also shown here. When you click in the women profile, you have this file that shows her picture, her age, what she did for a living, and what kind of crime she was the victim of, when she died, where she died, the suspect, the age. It's in this right side, it's a little profile of the criminal. And a little bit under it, it's a timeline of how it's going with the dates of the crime, when the police got it, when the inquiry was closed, everything. And this show us something that I will talk to you a little further. But let me just go under to the news. We would write this with this woman's story, telling her story and updating it each month and in 2018. So it wouldn't be a frozen thing. It has life, even though her life was ended. And this timeline shows us some very disappointing things, that some cases weren't even closed by the police yet. 2 years later, some cases still at the precincts go didn't go forward. And we have this little stamp that shows the femicide victims. So it's different for the other victims between the 241 cases. So every update will go back there. The police, if they close the case, the public ministry, if they report it, if it was already in court. Now we're doing it not monthly as before, as when the project started. So the update goes there in the timeline and in the article under it. And knowing this, we see how the crime, how the impunity of the crime between
I'm afraid we are having some connection issues. Caroline is having some connection issues on the other side of the world. They're very far. I'm not sure. Caroline, perhaps you can try to connect again. I'm afraid it's not happening. I'm trying to look through the presentation to see how many more slides we had over here.
In 2018, only 4 had
to help a little bit.
actually,
They're not listening to us, no? I'm trying to understand here with production what we can do to continue. Presentation for a moment, because right now we can't hear you, Caroline. And let's see. Yes, can you try and talk to us, Caroline, to see if we have you back? Hello? Juliana, Ciara, can you hear me well?
See, yes, yes.
Sí.
Let's try again. Let's try.
Okay. can continue showing the presentation, Juliana and Ciara. Maybe
Yes,
one of
please.
you, yes. So maybe
Please.
perhaps one of you can recover the moment where we stopped. And even if you have to do this in Portuguese, it is fine. I will try and help from the studio.
Perfect. Gracias. Obrigado. Muito bem. Vamos lá. Vou falar mais devagar para que todos compreendam. Ah, Carol voltou. Vamos ver se Carol consegue.
Can you hear
Okay,
me now?
we're going to see if Caroline is back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Caroline. Yes, we can hear you. So we have only a few moments to continue. So I'm going to ask you to speed up the presentation a little bit. It's not a major issue because we are going to share the slides online as well. And the conversation can continue on social media. Okay, so let's see if you can guide us a little bit to what comes next, but yeah, a bit faster, please.
Okay. So we have these numbers that show how these women were killed. Most of them with firearms, which is a major issue, and 72% of them were killed at their home. It makes it more. It shows how the crime happens. It's someone related to them. This data all tells us this story, and since it's a very subjectivity, the subjectivity of this crime is so huge because the public agency of security had eight cases less than we found out, because we continued, we went along with the cases in all the places, like the public ministry, the justice court. So we have the higher numbers. So some reports of this public agency, it may show a lower number of the crime. We also went to the newspaper, making this data into, and we analyzed this data with these articles, and these articles went back to the website too. So you can see some and how our data is shown in a frozen space, not in the web. And the crime scene, why show it? It's a very disturbing thing. These pictures are also very disturbing to me. But we had this huge discussion about why show it, and we decided to show it after a lot of time having this conversation. Let me just explain you what we did. So the victim wasn't so exposed, the family wasn't so exposed. Our designer, he worked over the pictures to make it more, not make that victim a victim again. Okay, so if that's understandable. This is our team. And some cases were very meaningful to us with this data. And we had one as Rosneide's case. She was an alcoholic that lived in the streets. And for the police, it was the crime was only a fight. And when we sorry. Okay, so let me just show you back a little bit how we had it in the newspaper, how it was shown. Okay. So the crime scene, that's how our designer worked over it with the pictures, so it wouldn't make the victims a victim again. And some cases were very hard for us, like one of these that were in the pictures, that is a woman that lived in the streets. The police only said it was a regular fight, but since we went with the case all along, we found out that her ex-boyfriend did it. He threw her away like trash, and it's very it hurt us a lot. This one, and it told us a story of how this crime is about possession. It's not a crime of passion. And this is our team. We also had a little amount of men involved in it. Designers, photographers, and front end, the website guys. And I think that's it. The numbers we shared, the data we shared in this project, like a scream asking for it to stop. The femicide, the impunity, and we will keep telling these stories until it's over. And thank you all, and I'm here now to answer your question.
Hi, Caroline, Chiara, and Juliana. Thank you so much for this great presentation. This is a very important topic. We have some questions here. Some were already asked by Chiara, but we have here one from, let me, here I find it, from Cristina Costa. Cristina asks, are the cooperation with other federal states and a network to Portugal, where a lot of Brazilian women have emigrated recently?
No, we didn't have it. If one of Ciara or Juliana wants to talk about it a little bit, we didn't have this cooperation with other federations. We only worked the numbers of our state, Pernambuco.
We have here another one from Adriana Guarda. Adriana asked, how was the relationship with the government, the police, and the justice in the dissemination of data? Did they collaborate?
Yes, we had to be like very close to them and ask a lot. And sometimes we did have a little trouble with some part of it. But in the beginning of the project, we made a deal with the public ministry and the justice, so they would work with us with the data they got.
Thank you so much, girls. I mean, I'm afraid that we don't have so much time, but I mean, we would like to thank you for your time and for showing us today this great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for having us.
A pleasure.
Thank you very much, Juliana, Caroline, and Ciara for sharing with us more on this incredible project. We had some issues with the connection, but the presentation is going to be shared online. And also the video will also be on our YouTube, the EJC's YouTube channel. So you can try and recover some of the conversation over there. It's time for a short break. We will resume in 5 minutes because of these connection issues. It took us a bit longer. But take a moment to stretch your legs or enjoy the music selection we prepared for you during the break. And then we return for some good data vibes to continue with our program.
Indeed, you know, it's one of the occupational hazards, Vera, when you try and beam people in from the other side of the world, and we want to give a platform to as many voices as possible. But yeah, that was really important work, and it was super powerful to see that represented there. When we come back, we're going to learn about the importance of positive deviance to write solutions-focused stories and how this method can help counter news fatigue. After that, we're going to close NIS Data, the final News Impact Summit of the year, with our labs in German, French, and English. The Google Teaching Fellows, Nadine and Alice, plus the Google Trainer Manager, Vincent, are going to present Google's newest research tool to investigate large collections of data. So all of that back here in 5 minutes.
go think that things aren't going my way, cause that would be boring. Spend my last cent on cheese and champagne. What a wonderful morning. Never mind, she declined to the first date. It was only on my birthday. Never mind all the lines on the highway. Give me time to reflect a bit, cause I'm just having a good day. Having a good day. Having a real good morning. I'm just having a good day. Having a good day. Having a real good morning. Real good morning. Real good morning. I guess that things can only get better from here, but sometimes I wonder, I might have met the love of my life, but I lost a number. Never mind, she declined to the first date. I went to Vegas with a roommate. Never mind all the lines on the highway. I aim to misbehave, cause I'm just having a good day. Having a good day. Having a real good morning. I'm just having a good day. Having a good day. Having a real good morning. I'm just having a good time. Having a bad day, yeah. A real good
Welcome back, everybody, to the News Impact Summit on Data, hashtag NIS Data. And for those of you who missed the first couple of sessions today and are just joining us, I'd like to remind you all that our sessions will be available soon here on the EJC YouTube channel. So if you subscribe to that, you're going to receive the notification as soon as that video is uploaded. Now, I am delighted to introduce you to Matthew Kaufman, who leads a data reporting project at the Solutions Journalism Network. Now, the network basically helps newsrooms to find solutions-oriented stories. And Matthew in particular is helping people look for positive deviance. Now, I think I got described once, Vera, as a positive deviant, but I don't think that's what Matthew is talking about. These are outliers in data that might point to places or programs that are successfully responding to social problems. So welcome, Matthew. This sounds fascinating. So I'm just going to hand it over to you.
Great. And thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. It is great to be here. As you heard earlier, for those of you who were on earlier, it's Thanksgiving here in the United States, a holiday that's mostly just an excuse for us Americans to overeat, as we're wont to do, but also a day to give thanks. And I'm thankful today that there are terrific data journalists around the world who presented earlier and are joining this presentation. So thanks to all of you for being here. As Adam mentioned, my name is Matt Kaufman. I am a longtime newspaper reporter. That's sort of my background. Worked on the investigative desk for the Hartford Courant. It's the oldest paper in America. Did a fair amount of data journalism as well. And am now doing a data project for the Solutions Journalism Network. So I want to talk a little bit about what solutions journalism is and why I think it's worth pursuing, and how it partners particularly well with data journalism. But first, I want to ground this discussion in kind of a perspective that I had in my entire career, really, in journalism. And this, someone else at Solutions Journalism Network had built this slide, and I sort of adapted it because it really sort of rang true with me. This idea of our profession's theory of change, at least according to us, is that we sort of shine a spotlight on problems. We expose things, and then that we count on as being enough to spur reform, that other people will take over from there, but not us, because we don't want to be seen as advocates. We don't want to pick sides. We don't want to be seen as picking winners. It's just sort of not really our role, and so we put it out there and hope that others kind of spur action. And I've found out sort of almost by accident, really late in my career, that there can be something of a middle ground there, and discovered this almost by accident. I was at a conference, a journalism conference, and someone from the Solutions Journalism Network was on a presentation and was making this pitch to kind of go beyond deep reporting on problems to engage in equally deep, reporting on responses to those problems with an eye toward identifying places or policies that were demonstrably making a difference, that had real evidence behind them. And I was 100% skeptical. It sounded too much like advocacy to me. And I chatted with her after the presentation, and she sort of explained how it can have kind of the same, rigor and depth of traditional reporting. And I found it kind of persuasive and eye-opening. So let me see if I can do a little eye-opening here today and see if it's the sort of things that you think is valuable to add to your reporting toolbox. And let me start kind of with a basic definition of solutions reporting. You can see it here: solutions journalism, rigorous and compelling reporting about responses to social problems, investigates and explains in a critical and clear-eyed way examples of people working towards solutions. I've always liked this sort of brief explanation from one of our co-founders, and all of the words here are important. Solutions journalism is rigorous. It relies on the investigative skills that you bring to any story, and it applies a critical eye. This is not soft journalism. It's not wishful thinking. Rather, it kind of goes beyond the important role that journalists play in reporting on social problems to, I think, expand it to an equally important role of reporting on possible solutions, critically analyzing different responses to those problems, again, with an eye toward identifying policies or places that have a proven evidence-based track record of success. And I think that approach becomes even more powerful when combined with data journalism. And for this audience, I don't need to sell anyone on the value of data journalism, how data can help you, discover better stories, tell better stories. But I do want to tell you how valuable data journalism can be in the pursuit of solutions journalism, and particularly in helping you identify what we call positive deviance. And now that may be a familiar term for some of you. I think Adam said he was once described as that. If it's not familiar to you, I know it might sound like the name, of a cheesy garage band. But in fact, positive deviance are the key to some really good solutions reporting. A positive deviant is a response to a problem that stands out from other responses because it appears to really lead to better outcomes. It is not a term you'll find in most dictionaries, so I kind of made my own dictionary entry here for you visual learners out there. Again, a response to a social problem that kind of stands out because it seems to really lead to better outcomes. And again, with evidence behind that claim there. And data certainly can provide a terrific lead to these positive deviants, because when the impact of a response can be measured with numbers, it's sort of easy to identify the high performers. So a positive deviant is an outlier, right? But, an outlier in a good way, kind of breaking away from the pack, having a better response, performing better. Still, I went ahead too far there. It can't be, a lucky break or a statistical anomaly or just sort of, demographic good fortune where one town has really good outcomes for, health or education because everyone in town happens to be, super rich, right? It's more than just, there's a better performer in the data. There's my positive deviance. What we want to find in that, when you look through data and you find, hey, this prison system, has really low recidivism, or this town has much cleaner drinking water, than similar towns. I want you to think of that outlier, that positive deviant, as basically a tip, as a starting point on a potential story. But you'll then have more reporting to do to kind of dig into it, see if there's a specific policy, a specific response behind that impressive outcome. Because ultimately, with solutions reporting, we're interested in identifying, novel approaches to problems, again, with a solid evidence-based record of success, with a real track record. So, Ronaldo or Serena, that hopefully time-tested, a sense of, wow, this really does seem to be approaching this problem in a successful way. And again, perhaps in a way that has eluded other efforts to deal with the problem. So again, data can play a terrific role in that process, kind of pointing us to better performers that are worth kind of a deeper look. And when we find these positive deviants, they can help us in this kind of grand quest to tell our readers and viewers who's doing it better. That's really, the heart of a lot of solutions reporting, a rigorous look at who is doing it better. So here in the US, it is the state that put specific protocols in place to see if they could reduce the number of women who died in childbirth. And in doing so, cut the rate of maternal mortality significantly. Great use of data showing that California's rate of maternal mortality, you can see on the slide here, began kind of a clear downward trend in 2008 when they started these policies, and kind of continued, on a clear downward projection, while the rest of the country, was sort of hitting one record high after another. And the reporter here, tied this positive trend here to specific protocols, specifically aimed at reducing postpartum bleeding in women, a leading cause of death. So California instituted policies in hospitals nationwide. And you can see here it made a real difference, and made for a great solution story and protocols that other states could put in place as well and save lives. So similarly, it's a school district that found ways to reduce the achievement gap between Black students and white students. The reporter, in this case, looked at data for every school district in Alabama, looking for those schools that had shrunk that gap, and came across one in particular, Pike County, which here you can see this is in third grade math. That bottom chart cut the gap between Black students and white students in half, from 20% to 10%. And this reporter didn't know which school districts would be the better performers here, or if there would be any. But, having just sort of basic literacy, analyzing the full data set, was able to find places doing it better. And then, did some reporting within Pike County, and discovered that there were, specific things that the county did, that school district did, to try to improve try to lessen that achievement gap. They protected instructional time for teachers. They promoted cultural understanding. They did more with project-based learning. At the higher grades, they built collaborations with colleges in the area. All of these areas, these responses seem to make a difference. And I think presented an excellent example of solutions journalism. So just a couple of stories there, kind of showing how a focus on positive deviance, on solutions reporting can lead, I think, to some terrific journalism, kind of putting a spotlight on concrete responses that are making a difference, and making a difference for the better. And I will tell you, in my long career in journalism, I don't think either of those stories would be the sort of story that I would have been interested in pursuing. I mean, I had this very sort of classic approach that, if I'm diving into a data set, I'm looking for the bad actors there, the poor performers, right? They're the ones that kind of need the spotlight shown on them to make improvements. But here's the thing: if we can use data to help uncover the bad actors, the poor performers, and we should, we can also use data to find the places that are doing better. And I think that will make for better journalism. So I'm not telling anyone to, pay no attention to the poor performers. But I think including the places that are doing better, those positive deviants, I think including those in your reporting will elevate your story. And let me show you how. Here's some charts on a few nations and their newly reported cases of COVID-19 over time. And I know there are people watching that, this is not news at all too. You can see these countries clearly have very troubling trends. I mean, look at Italy, I guess Portugal as well, to an extent that, early spike, they seem to have it under control. And then months later, just completely lost control. And what's going on in these countries is an important story. It's good journalism. You want to sort of hold their feet to the fire. Are there things they did or didn't do that allowed this to get out of control? So I think that's good journalism, but maybe better journalism if you can investigate if maybe it didn't have to be that way, if there might have been a better way. So let me add a fourth country here, and I'll tell you, I wanted to add a country in Europe, and there really are no positive deviants on the continent. But let's go a little east and look at what the curve looks like in Kazakhstan. You can see a couple of spikes in the early months and one gigantic spike. And I don't know, there may be some issues with data here. But over the last couple of months, a bit of an uptick recently, but nothing like the massive climbs in these other countries. Now, I don't know how good the data are in Kazakhstan or what's going on there, but I think if you put some, rigorous reporting into what officials did there, not taking anyone's word for it, but really investigating, were there policies put in place that made a difference, that led to these better outcomes, that saved lives? If that were the case, I think you've got yourself a story with better accountability and some possible ideas for a better path forward, kind of rather than solely focusing on the bad performers. And these COVID data, I think, also point to an important tenet in solutions journalism. If a problem is not well known, not well recognized in a community, then reporting sort of solely on that problem, bringing it to light, I think that can be important and meaningful journalism. But if a problem is widely known, if everyone in the community knows, there's a terrible problem with homelessness, or that the local waterways are polluted, or that the public housing for senior citizens is in terrible disrepair, if all of that is kind of widely understood, or what we see here, that yes, the COVID rates are out of control, if that's well known, then I'm not sure there's much value in kind of yet another story telling reporters or telling readers a depressing fact that they already know. And I think that's where solutions reporting on who's doing it better is truly valuable, kind of taking audiences beyond the problem they already know about and putting the spotlight on responses that are making a difference. I think that just makes for better journalism. So I think when you do solutions journalism, when you find those positive deviants, I think it elevates your work in a number of different ways. I think it is better accountability journalism. If you show that a problem can be successfully addressed, that there are places that have found a way to do it better, I think you take away the ability of the poor performers to make excuses for that poor performance. Hey, there's nothing we can do about it. Mistakes happen. We've done all we can. Excuses like that just don't hold a lot of weight if you've shown other places that can do it better, that have avoided mistakes. And number two, I think it offers a possible path forward that communities can rely on. Rather than simply kind of wallow in failure, right? This sort of news fatigue that we struggle with. It can highlight, again, carefully vetted policies that can lead to better outcomes and that might be replicable to other communities. So it's not advocacy. It's clear-eyed. When there are limitations, we include the limitations. If it's very expensive or it only works, under certain circumstances, something like that, you're definitely going to want to include that. But it nevertheless, vets possible ways forward that other communities could use. So in that sense, I think it's it's true public service journalism. And then lastly, it gives readers and viewers, I think, the kind of journalism that studies consistently show that they want and that they're willing to pay for, frankly, and subscribe for. Stories that offer, some degree of hope, not stories that sugarcoat problems, but stories that pair in-depth reporting and coverage of problems with equally in-depth, rigorous coverage of solutions to those problems or responses to those problems that might lead to solutions. So in that sense, I think it's kind of good sustainable journalism. So think about the data sets that you've worked with that might lend themselves to positive deviance, issues around criminal justice and corrections, any reporting around health, certainly, community issues around pollution and the like. When there are bad actors, there may be places that are doing better and would lend itself. Education, certainly. There's an enormous amount of data on education. Any area that there are disparities worth reporting on, I think, are better if you include responses that seem to be working a little bit better. So I want to wrap up here with some great advice that I got from a very, very wise well, actually, I'm sorry. First, before I do that, if you want to find out more about solutions journalism, take down this URL here, learninglab.solutionsjournalism.org. Our basic toolkit is available in 17 languages. Some of the languages scrolling here, some will look familiar. A great way to dig in if you want to learn more about it. Or want to, if you're already familiar with it and kind of get a little refresher there. A ton of resources available, starting with this toolkit in multiple languages. So now we want to wrap up with that final thought from this very wise fortune cookie that I got years ago in a Chinese restaurant. This actual fortune cookie that I got and kind of have carried it around with me for years to, put the data that you have uncovered to beneficial use. And I think it's only once I started working with solutions journalism that I sort of truly understood, what the universe was trying to tell me with this. So now I share this wisdom with you. Yes, pursue data. And when you do find kind of a great data set, put it to beneficial use by recognizing the value of data and identifying positive deviance that can help you then produce strong solutions journalism. And I think that's going to bring us to the last slide. You can see my email address is here, some Twitter handles, but also a link here, a bit.ly link to a handout with some more information about solutions reporting that I encourage everyone to download. So again, just bit.ly SJN-NIS 2020 will get you to that PDF. And my email address is here. If you are interested in doing more with data and solutions reporting, by all means, reach out to me. I'm always happy to help. And with that, I thank you all for listening. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Hi, Matthew. How are you?
Good. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. We have a question from Umar Hassan. Umar, let me pull it here. Yeah, Oman asks, when looking for good news solutions journalism stories using data, how important is it that the subject remains a pivotal part of the issue or story you are covering?
So with solutions reporting, it's important that if you find certainly if you mean a subject, meaning like an individual that is, doing something good, we tend not to focus on individuals, that we're more interested in the process. So if there is a response, we want sort of very clear reporting on how the response was implemented and the impact that it had. So if you are writing about homelessness and you find there's another community used to have the same problem you did, but things have gotten much better, the focus is really going to be not so much on who was involved or the agency. It's the policy. This was the response. This is how it was put in place, and this is the impact that it seemed to have, that the data at least provides some evidence of it having. I hope that answered the question.
I think it does. Thank you, Matthew. We don't have more questions from our audience, but yeah, thank you so much for being here today with us in a special day like is for you, Thanksgiving in the US. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Matthew, for taking us into the good exercise of finding positive deviance. We'll come back to Sally as well to show how she is translating this day with her drawings. Let's take a look at that. There we go. Wow, a packed day. We can tell also from the drawing, right? With a lot of presentations and positive takeaways, or so we hope. We are really enjoying it over here. Thank you for that. And we are nearing the end of NIS Data. This has been a fantastic 3-day experience with 30 speakers from Europe and beyond, leading 20 sessions in 3 languages and on how we can better use data to counter misinformation and disinformation, cover social justice, elections, gender, healthcare, and the economic and human impact of COVID-19. Around 2,000 journalists gathered for this summit to learn best practices around using data to bring in more diversity, equality, and equity to journalism. And we saw and discussed amazing storytelling and data visualizations produced in 2020, and went beyond to learn about tools, products, and access to data as ways to innovate in journalism and regain the trust of our audiences.
Vera, 2020 has been, it's been a really tough year, I think, for journalists across the globe. And we've seen our colleagues across Europe and the rest of the world under immense pressure, I think, to help communities understand some of the biggest stories of, well, certainly my lifetime. And of course, the organizations that they work for have also faced revenue loss, dwindling resources, and also threats from governments and bad actors as well as they try and do their work in the pandemic. And yet the way that this community has come together has been really, really inspiring. People have reached out to each other. You see journalists offering help. You see it in the chat all day today. People are jumping on Zoom calls at all hours. It's been amazing. And watching journalists from Europe and beyond, they have never stopped learning. I think they haven't stopped learning at all this year. They've opened themselves up to new experiences, new ways of working, and demonstrated the passion that they have for journalism every single day. So I want to thank every single one of you who's tuned in. This is why we do our work. Actually, this is why we come to work every day, is to help people like you and to be inspired by you. This year, we've been fortunate enough to train and engage over 40,000 journalists, and we've given nearly 5 million euros of grants. We couldn't do that, of course, without the work of people like our partners at the Google News Initiative. And of course, we couldn't do it without the openness and inspiration and feedback that everyone gives us. So I see you all in the chat, and I just want to say thank you to you. And I really hope you and your families are safe and well. My team and we're nearly coming to the end of this. And Vera, I want to thank you, of course, for your leadership and your creativity this year. It's been a trying time, I'm sure. You've had to learn a lot of new skills, as have we all. But you've done an amazing job. And I also want to shout out, of course, the rest of your team, Charlie, Angela, Anna, Linda, Stella, Lucas, Bianca. Every single one of you has really, really helped. And it's been amazing watching you all come together and help to deliver this. And of course, our friends at Strict, who are there behind the camera, who you don't get to see, but they've been amazing and really, really helping us get this together. So, Vera, we have one more thing left.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for that. It's very pleasant to hear. We will close the summit with a masterclass about Pinpoint, Google's latest tool to dive into investigating large collections of data. This will happen on 3 different live streams in 3 languages. So for those of you who wish to attend the online lab in English, with Google News Lab trainer manager Vincent Ryan, please stay in this live stream. For those who wish to attend the labs in German and French, the German session is going to be with Google Teaching Fellow Nadine Rabah. Please click on the links that we are sharing in the live chat now, and you will be in the company of Alice Palousière for the French lab. So you can also find the link in the chat. From my part, thanks again to everyone involved in organizing the first 3 summits that were 100% virtual. I wish to express a heartfelt thank you to my team, our colleagues, the leadership team at the EJC also for their support, to the Strictua crew who is behind camera. You see some photos on Twitter here and there. Our speakers, partners, and friends, and to Google News Initiative for sponsoring the summits, of course. Finally, all of you, roughly 4,000 journalists who made this an incredibly interesting and fun event to host and discuss. We hope, too, that you have enjoyed the ride as much as we have. So take care, everyone. Stay safe. And I wish you all a very happy end of the year and all the best in 2021.
Hi, welcome everybody. Well, who is joining us now for this online training with Vincent Ryan from the Google News Initiative. Hello, Vincent.
Hello, how's things?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good now. How are you?
We're looking forward to hearing from you and the latest tool that Google wants to present us today, Pinpoint. Are you ready?
I am indeed, yeah.
Whenever you want.
Excellent. So, hi, my name is Vincent Ryan. I work for Google News Lab. And hopefully today I'm going to introduce you to our latest tool, which is Pinpoint, along with Journalist Studio. So, where is my mouse going? Here we go. So, Journalist Studio and Pinpoint. So, my name is Vincent Ryan. I'm the News Lab training manager. So my own background and everybody else who works for News Lab's background pretty much is that we are all journalists, or former journalists. I work on elevating quality journalism, and I work across the curriculum for helping improve newsrooms' ability to use digital tools to help them find, verify, and tell stories online. My email address is vincentryan@google.com. If you have any thoughts about training, if you're interested in training, or if you have any thoughts about new tools that you think might be useful for journalists, please do let me know. This is the Google News Initiative. We work to build a stronger future for journalism. We work across the 3 E's. These are elevate and strengthen quality journalism, evolve business models to drive sustainable growth, and empower news organizations through technological innovation. I see my work as being under this first E, to elevate and strengthen quality journalism. And what we're going to talk about today, Pinpoint to Journalist Studio, falls under elevating quality journalism and empowering news organizations through technological innovation, as this is the first tool that Google has built purposely for journalists. The evolved business models to drive sustainable growth is obviously an incredibly important part of Google News Initiative work. This is the work that we do around business-bound subscription models, around paywalls, and we do most of that work through what's called the Digital Growth Program. And if you're interested, I would highly recommend checking that out and signing up for some of our in-depth labs that we do there, as we want to help return the news industry to a sustainable and profitable footing. So a core part of my work is this website, g.co/news training. And on it, we have a full range of courses, everything from verification through to machine learning. You can sign up, you can take them at your own time. When you finish a course, there's sometimes a little quiz and it'll give you a cert when you finish. And the goal is that these are tools which will help reporters find, verify, and tell news stories online. Hopefully we're going to have a new course coming up very, very soon. And we constantly update this site, and we try to keep things as relevant to you and your work as possible, drawing upon our own experiences in the newsroom as to what will and will not work. So Journalist Studio is our attempt to group these tools together. So tools that we believe will help journalists in one place. These are tools such as the Advanced Protection Program, which will help you keep your communication secure, securing your email account, making sure that you have two-factor authentication set up. And Project Shield is another tool which secures websites, so that this make sure that your site can't be taken down by a DDoS attack, a distributed denial of service attack, and by lending you Google servers to protect your website. Outline is another security tool. So Outline is a VPN. It's a simple 10 to 15 minute job to set it up. You can use any internet infrastructure you like, be that Amazon, be that DigitalOcean, or you could use Google Cloud, and it will give you access to a free internet anywhere in the world. Obviously, journalists are very interested in facts. So Fact Check Explorer does what it says. It allows you to explore fact-checked articles. So these are articles that we have marked using schema as being fact-checked. So that is, they're either been marked true, untrue, or partially true by one of our fact-checking partners, people like AFP or Full Fact. We use a huge number of trust indicators to figure out who we can rely on in order to include them within the Fact Check Explorer. The Common Knowledge Project is a very relatively new project that we've undertaken. At the moment, it is only in the US, and it allows you to explore and visualize local data. Again, it's powered by schema. Hopefully, this will be being expanded to the rest of the world at some point in the near future. I can't say when yet, but one day, hopefully. Trends. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Google Trends. Google Trends is a window into what people are putting in the search box. What are people looking for? And where are they looking for it? So this can often lead to interesting stories around elections, who is the most searched for person, or even around shopping trends. What is it that the hottest toy that's being searched for at the moment? What's going to be the Black Friday deal that everyone's after tomorrow? And Flourish is our tool for making beautiful visualizations. I say our tool, it's actually developed by a company called Killen. We just partner with them. If you are interested in Flourish, go to flourish.studio/newsroom, and you can sign up for an enterprise account that we will support. It really does allow you to make the most beautiful stories you can imagine. Check out Flourish's talkies, which are infographics that have a voice track. And they play through like a video, and they are really, really beautiful. But the main reason we're here today is to talk about Pinpoint. So Pinpoint is a very, very exciting tool. So how we've arrived at developing this is one of the pain points to high quality journalism is time. The best in class journalism is always investigative. And investigative journalism takes time. It involves going through huge amounts of documents, talking to huge amounts of people, and then stitching it all together. One of the pain points of anyone who has worked in a newsroom knows is if you do an FOI request, sometimes the DHL man or the delivery man will turn up with literally phone books of documents that you may read. And then your editor may say, there's nothing in that. That is just a brief. So in order to avoid that and to help make things a little bit easier, we've made a tool that can ingest all of these documents, all this unstructured data, and make it searchable, help you make sense of it, and do it quickly. So this is what Pinpoint looks like when you sign up. You have these workspaces, and you can create collections. So it's not all of your documents dumped in at once. You can put them into little sections, and then the search area will just be for that section. So say you have 12 PDFs that are about one individual. You can make one collection about that individual, and then you will be able to search through that really, really quickly. And that's what it does. It can quickly search through lots of documents, and it will highlight particular words, people, places, and names. And we'll get to more of that. So these are the file types that it supports. It supports PDFs. It supports images, and I'll show you that. Word documents, obviously. Email archives, that's not quite obvious, but obviously they are a absolute gold mine for investigative journalists. If you can get a full email archive, you can go through someone's whole correspondence. Slideshows, PowerPoint documents, very exciting. And then MP3s. So it can create beautiful transcripts that you can then search through, and it will do it really, really quickly and really, really nicely, and help you see the bigger picture, and that's the goal. So the other thing that you can do is very few investigations are done by just a lone wolf. There tends to be a team behind all of these things. So you can share your collections with other people. You can share them with your editor. You can share them with your sub-editor. You can share them with a researcher or a collaborator, so that you can go through these together and make some notes on them, and you can all see at the same time what you're looking at. So the best thing to do here is probably to just jump out and take a look at it. So if we go into Pinpoint, this is my instance of Pinpoint, which is open. When you arrive in it, this is what it looks like. You have your workspace at the top, and then you will have some documents that are already loaded in it. So these have been provided to us by partners. They're like Document Cloud and the Center of Public Integrity. At the moment, they are all US based documents, but that doesn't mean they're not interesting. They are. There's like things like all of the JFK assassination records, which can be entertaining to go through and look at. And hopefully we will be adding more documents from other partners in the near future. But what's probably more interest is that you can create your own private collection. And this is where you can upload your own documents, be them your notes or be they documents that you get from an FOI request. So I'm just going to show you some examples. These are some NASA documents that we have that I've uploaded and that you can search through. So when you upload them, the first thing it does is it uses Google's knowledge graph. So Google Knowledge Graph is how Google understands the world. So this is a list of people, places, and things, and that you can search through. So we have all of the people. So obviously these are NASA documents. So one of the most mentioned people is Neil Armstrong. One of the most mentioned organizations is NASA. But at the moment, there is 1,309 documents. So let's say we want to cut that down a bit. So we'll say we're only interested in documents that feature Neil Armstrong. Let's filter that a little bit further. So we'll say Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, because he has the best name. And then you're down to suddenly 52 documents. And so that's cut it down from 1,000 to 300. And it just shows you documents that mention those two people. So if we click into this one, we see here we have Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin, because Google knows that Edwin Aldrin is Buzz Aldrin. So it doesn't have to be the exact same phrase. It understands synonyms. So I'll show you that synonym feature as well. If we go in here and we type in, say, moon. Obviously, this is NASA. There's going to be a lot of mentions of the moon. But it will give you, we're going to remove Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin as well. It will not only return instance of moon, but also lunar, because lunar is a synonym for moon. So it works in not just exactly the word you're looking for, but if a synonym is used within those documents, it will also return that, which makes it extremely powerful for searching through documents. And not only does it work for like simply nicely typed letters, but if we say, let's see, if I put in STDN and we put in here, it's going to return this picture. Now, as you can see, this file type here is JPEG. So this is an image. So if I click on this image and I search for the letters STDN, and if you look closely there, above this guy's computer in Mission Control somewhere in NASA, it says STDN. And Pinpoint can look through all of the pictures, and it can find that in this picture, it has the letters STDN, and so it will return that, which is cool. But what if there are an awful lot of scribbles, not a lot of unstructured data, a lot of stuff written in handwriting on your notes, and you're thinking that might be where the story is actually hidden? So if I put it in Loomis, State, this one. And here we have a document. But as we see down here in handwriting, not flat, but at an angle, it has the word state. So I typed in Loomis with Henry Loomis, who's the acting director, and then state. And Pinpoint can find the word state written in that document in his handwriting, completely unstructured. And it uses basically Google's vision, cloud vision, to pull that out, transcript it into type, and then understand it as letters, which is pretty cool. So they are some of the things you can do. Oh, the final little trick. If we're going to put in Bob code. Here we have an MP3. So MP3 is an audio file. So this was a recording that was uploaded to Pinpoint. And when it is uploaded to Pinpoint, it converts it into a transcript. And in this transcript, you can see what's written out, or you can click play, and 3 seconds in,
Commander Bob code.
It says Bob code. And it will play through that whole file, but it just highlights instances of the word Bobco, 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 because that's what we were searching for, which is basically the audio transcription. At the moment, it works very, very well in English and also okay in Spanish. That we will be adding additional languages early next year. Can't tell you exactly when, but we're doing an awful lot of work to make sure that the language transcription function is as accurate and good as it can possibly be. And so that is some of it. So the next thing to have a quick look at is some stories that have been done with Pinpoint. So we can show like this works. It has worked for other newsrooms. So these are some examples. Here is one from the USA Today, who focused on what is the world's biggest story at the moment, which is obviously coronavirus. And they used Pinpoint to have a look at where
the biggest challenge for reporting, honestly, is time, right? It's really difficult to say no when somebody wants you to look into something that you believe is important, but you just don't have the time to do it. My colleague Tricia Nadolny and I were asked to handle investigations relating to social services during the pandemic. Our focus really became largely about nursing homes during that time period. We requested records from all 50 states, and I uploaded them into Pinpoint. Pretty much immediately when you upload documents and that site populates with the list of names that are included or places that are included, you can kind of very quickly get an idea of what is in there. We compiled that into a database that we then analyzed and provided to the public. For the first time, some families were able to look up their loved one's assisted living facility and see whether there had been a case, because in some states and in some counties, facilities were not communicating directly with families in a way where they felt like they understood what was going on. In terms of investigative journalism, our job is to expose wrongdoing, to shed light on something that's going wrong in the hopes that maybe it can go in a better direction.
And that was the USA Today and how they used it to do a big investigation into the instances. And they made it local. So by uploading all of the documents, they were able to let readers look for local care homes and see if there were what the instance of coronavirus was in the local care homes, which was something that wasn't happening on a national level in the US. So this was kind of very much public interest journalism. Another person of high note is Maria Ressa, who some of you might be familiar with, who's a journalist from the Philippines. And she used Pinpoint to look through all of the CIA's cables in the 1970s and came up with an incredible story that about the Marcos family and their links with the CIA. And she then included that on her newsletter. She also used Pinpoint, which is very interesting, to take all of her notes that she'd ever had as a journalist and upload them all in Pinpoint, so that she would be able to very quickly access anything she has ever written about somebody in the past, and she can just search through it so that she doesn't, anything she forgot, she can go to her notes really, really quickly, just click on them and be like, about this person. So if there's a new story around them, she can look at all of her old notes instantly in Pinpoint and be able to recall all the old reporting and to add some color. This was Hearst Media Group, who used Pinpoint to upload a huge number of the civil litigation cases that were taken against these boys and girls clubs in America to track the basically the behavior of sexual abuse and predator and how they were being dealt with by these organizations, and it let them find more victims than had initially been thought to be around. Again, the Center for Public Importance, they used it to look at the ICE, the border police's use of, or basically a failure to protect people around coronavirus in New Mexico. The Boston Globe have used Pinpoint on a number of occasions. This was using the synonym ability of Pinpoint, so they didn't know exactly what they were looking for within all of the police department's procurement documents. So they were able to look for basically different words like around military equipment. So it, instead of gun, might not have returned the correct thing because obviously the Boston police are going to be buying guns, but if it returns machine gun and shotgun and lots of different instances and synonyms of that word, they were able to quickly trace through what was and wasn't normal in their the Boston police's accusation of basic military weaponry, and it was part of a series investigating the militarization of U.S. police forces. The Washington Post, this was another quite novel use case, and during Mueller's deposition, they had Pinpoint and all of the documents uploaded. So during their live blog coverage, they were able to very quickly go to the page and to the exact sector that was being either asked about or that the cross-examination was referring to, and they were able to add that into their coverage instantly and be on the exact page where the source documents were taking everything for as if they were in the room straight away, which was a really, really good use case. The Baltimore Sun, again, this is another different use case. So this is around a holiday. So by looking at historical documents, they were able to look at, I think it was on Martin Luther King Day that they published this. So they were able to look at what was said about Martin Luther in Baltimore in the past and how he had been treated. And it was quite a nice investigation to go with that holiday. And Verificado in Mexico, and they use Pinpoint to fact check the president's live TV broadcasts. And then because it creates a transcript, they can compare the Pinpoint transcript to the transcript that's officially released by the government and to check which is more accurate. And they're also able to see exactly what's said, search it, and fact check it in real time, which is a really cool use. And that's kind of where we are with Pinpoint. So I would encourage you all to sign up. So you have to go to g.co/Pinpoint. And there may be a 1-2 day delay before you will have access to the tool. But if you're with a news organization, you will get access. And we would like to hear your feedback on it. And so if you have any questions about it, you can contact Pinpoint support, or you can contact me, or you can contact NewsLab support, all at google.com. And we look forward to seeing what you do with the tool. And that is kind of it. And if you have any other stories you would like to tell or things to investigate, I would highly recommend looking at g.co/news training, where you can explore our courses. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your time as well. Thank you.
Excellent.
We have one question from Umar Hassan. Umar asks, yeah, let me show you. Yeah, Umar asks, how accurate is the transcription in the MP3 file in the Pinpoint?
I won't say it's 100% accurate, but it is as accurate as we can possibly make it. We are constantly working on improving it. It can tell the difference between, and this is quite amazing, if you were to refer to Hoover Dam, as in the water dam, it will spell it D-A-M. Whether if you were to say dam, it will understand that that's you using giving out, and it will spell it D-A-M-N. So it is fairly incredibly accurate. But I won't say it's perfect, because as soon as I say that, somebody will find a flaw.
It's still work in progress.
Just about. Nothing is ever finished.
True. So thank you so much, Vincent, for being here today with us and presenting Pinpoint to our Miss Data audience. Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon again. Bye.